Good morning. Thank you for joining us today for our advisory council meeting. I'm Adria Berry, the executive director of the OMMA and statutory chair of the Executive Advisory Council. And I call this meeting of the Advisory Council to order at this time, which is 9:03 a.m. I'll cover some housekeeping and reminders first, and then we'll get started on agenda items. As required by Oklahoma's Open Meeting Act, which you can read at any time at 25 OS Section 311, advance notice of this special meeting was provided to the Secretary of State on January 29th, 2026. The notice included the date, time, and location of this meeting, and the agenda was posted February 25th at 10:30 a.m. at OMMA's principal place of business and on OMMA's website. As a reminder, this meeting, as all of our meetings are, is being live streamed and recorded. For the audience online to hear you, please make sure that you push the button before you speak into it. Council members will be recognized to speak during the council meeting, but those of you who have signed up for public comment will be called by name as we move through the sign-in sheet. You will have 3 minutes to address the council. I'd like to also recognize we have a special guest here who I'm very grateful that he and his colleague are attending. General Counsel Josh McGoldrick from OB&DD is here with us today, as well as Kyle Pepler. Thank you both for being here. Cassie, please conduct a roll call so that we may establish whether a quorum is present.
So sorry. Of course. Chair Adria Berry.
Here.
David Gerken.
Here.
Katie Nail.
Here.
Randy Hendricks.
Here.
Taras Flinko.
Here.
Sheriff Tommy Johnson. We have quorum.
Thank you, Cassie. We will move to approve, with a quorum established, the next item of business is a consideration of the meeting minutes from November 21, 2025. Council members, you have received the minutes in advance. Are there any corrections or amendments to the minutes as presented from council members? Hearing none, the chair will entertain a motion to approve the November 21st, 2025 meeting minutes. Do you mind pushing your button? Thank you.
Motion for approval.
A motion by Sheriff Johnson.
I second it.
And a second by Councilmember Randy Hendricks. We will call roll call now.
Adria Berry.
Aye.
David Gerken.
Here.
Do you approve the minutes? Oh, yes. Thank you. Katie Nail.
Yes.
Randy.
Yes.
Taras Flinko.
Yes.
Okay. And Sheriff Tommy Johnson, you first.
Yes, ma'am.
Motion carries.
Thank you. The motion passes and the minutes are approved. All right, now we are moving into the first ever OMMA Advisory Council public comment session. We have a special seat up here reserved for public comment. When you are giving your public comment, you will have 3 minutes to speak, and you will need to push the button to speak into the microphone so that anyone that is watching online can hear what you're saying. Public comments are an opportunity for the council and people in the room to listen. We're not going to engage in discussion at that time. We are going to listen and take what you are telling us under consideration so that we can keep the meeting moving in a timely manner. When your name is called, please come forward, state your name for the record, and begin your remarks. When your 3 minutes is up, we'll let you know, and please make sure your microphone is on. All right, our first comment is Jed Green. Commenter is Jed Green.
Are we good? Okay, good morning. First of all, Director Berry, thank you for seeing that this public comment period was included into this. I believe it provides a good opportunity. I hope that this is productive for everyone. I'm simply going to run down and flag some questions with some bills and some things that may affect OMMA. It's more implementation, not going to dive into the policy. Senate Bill 1501 deals with the grow bonds. For the purpose of this section, reclamation means returning the land to a marketable condition. Marketable condition is highly subjective. Real property is considered marketable, bought and sold in all conditions. Even the cherry-picked pictures that we see tout the worst of the worst offenders have not demonstrated anything which would not make a property unmarketable. I hope that the state's able to continue the conversation and, work with private industry to deal with the abandoned grows. Senate Bill 1257 in its current form, the bill is confusing. It creates a new definition of marijuana. I've raised concern with the AG's team, Senate author. There's currently still a typo in there that would render the entire thing moot. That bill needs work. And as OBN's aware, sometimes you have to actually make a list in order to be effective. So hopefully the House will accept an amendment there. Senate Bill 1305 simply strips power from OMMA to handle employee credential education. As written, this will not allow appropriate time to get out an RFP, vendors vetted and selected, in place and in sync with existing licensing software before they have to perform ahead of the January 2027 deadline. House Bill 3314. Okay, this is the tax bill. The folly of this bill cannot be understated. First, it raises taxes over 100% on cancer patients, those battling opioid addiction, epileptic children, those suffering from neurological disorders, veterans, and the terminally ill. Second, expecting this to pass in urban counties is a pipe dream. If the state and local governments want to increase revenue from the program, which created a fund that has sent over $200 million to local school building projects, they can do a far better and actually support public safety by enforcing laws in place against illegal sales of synthetic THC and marijuana sold as hemp. One simply has to go to the OMMA tax data page to see the 30% decline in revenue from 2021 to 2025 that bears out this factor. That's not an OMMA issue. That's an OBN and AG failure to administrate the last 3 years. We hope that they'll get the resources that direction. 3317, same as 3314, hitting those that can at least afford it right in the pocketbook, just another few percent of market share back to the unregulated market. Let's not do that. Senate Bill 1591, outside the obvious issue of denying effective dosage to cancer patients, opioid survivors, epileptic children, those suffering from rare neurological disorders, and the terminally ill, the emergency clause that was put in on this bill will create a multi-million-dollar taking of business inventory while giving OMMA zero opportunity to promulgate rules. That has to be amended. HB 4454, this bill has the same core issues as Senate Bill 159, but may leave it up to our seed-to-sale vendor to define edible. There's no getting around a major rule having to be promulgated. So,
Thank you for your comments.
Thank you very much.
All right, next up is John Kumbas. Sorry, I read it wrong. John Kumbas.
Green light means I'm hot. Yes. You can call me John, Sheriff. I'm going to second what Jed Green said. Director Berry, thank you so much for having this public comment for this meeting. I do appreciate it. I appreciate all of the esteemed guests, all the panel members. My biggest thing is transparency after these meetings. Like, we have 5 people here. The 6th seat still hasn't been filled yet. I think going forward, these committee members, there needs to be more people, like processors, growers, dispensary owners. We have a sheriff here. We have 2 dispensary owners. We have a landman from southern Oklahoma. We have a nurse. I don't know what happens after these meetings, and neither do any of these other ones that are sitting here. So I'm not mad. I love these meetings and everything, but I really feel like this board needs to be expanded, because I don't know who on this board represents JKJ Processing and the interest of my company, my employees, my patients that use my product to help what ails them. And I would just love a little more transparency. I do commend OMMA on, being a little more transparent and fixing the issues that we are having in the industry. But I think at this meeting, we need more local Oklahoman business owners at this meeting so we can, give our opinions as well. I don't know the sheriff's stance on marijuana. I don't know Mr. Hendrick's stance on marijuana and stuff. I know Katie's because I've heard her and everything, and I'm sure the dispensary owners as well. But all I'm going to say is I wish there was a little more transparency. Other than that, thanks so much for having us. I appreciate you opening this up to us to actually talk and stuff. But other than that, hope you guys have an amazing, amazing Friday.
All right, thank you for your comment, and you came in under 3 minutes. All right, James T.
I give my minutes to whoever.
Good morning. My name is James Shearsh. I'm the owner of Pollination Cultivation. Thank you guys all for being here this morning. I'm going to continue on with what John was saying too. All you guys out on the board, we don't know any of y'all. We don't know how to get a hold of y'all. Katie was one exception. We can reach out to her. She'll respond. I know you own Kind Love, but you're out of Colorado, so I don't know how that. You're okay. Well, you've started in Colorado though. All right, and then you're F5, right? Okay, and you're at Oklahoma? Okay, I appreciate that. Thank you, sir. And then Sheriff Tommy Johnson, not sure of your stance on marijuana. Obviously, it's probably a little jaded. But okay, all right. Well, I think I was at the first meeting, and I don't think you were here. There was actually you had a stand-in for you. Yeah, I remember meeting him. And then you are a cattle rancher, right? So I'm not really sure what he's doing on the board, but as John said again, why are there not more true growers, processors, people who are really in this business on this board? My next big thing is, where's the tax money going? How much have we raised? It's supposed to be 75% to education. We're 50th in education. It's 25% supposed to go to rehabs. Where's the rehabs that are open? I haven't seen any. Have y'all? Has anybody seen any of those? I mean, that's kind of my biggest thing. I just feel like there's not a lot of transparency and we don't know what's going on. And again, kind of on what John said too. It's just, how do we get a hold of you guys? How do we reach out to y'all? How do we talk to y'all? I've reached out to you through email and you have responded. You did get back to me. I appreciate that. But just, if there's a way we can all kind of work together, we all just want to work together. We just want to do good business. We're not here to do anything bad. And just any way we can help, let us know. Give us some feedback. Let's work together. Let's figure this out. Can we do that? Is that possible? I appreciate y'all's time. Thank you.
All right, thank you for your comment. Next, we have Summer Parker.
Good morning. Thank you, Director Berry, for opening this up to public comment. That is very important for our community to be heard more than one time per year, so I do appreciate that. I'm going to touch on what JKJ said, and I'm going to say that I 1,000% agree that this council needs to be expanded on. I do feel like we need more patient representation up here as well. We need small mom and pop business representation. We need processor representation, lab representation, compliance representation. Okay. We need a panel of about 20 people, guys. Now, I've emailed legislators and asked about expanding this panel. I don't know what it's going to take, but I need support and I need help pushing that idea. So thank you, John, for bringing that up. Now, today I want to talk about government transparency as well. And this may get some people upset. It may offend some, and I apologize if it does in advance, but oh well. So government transparency, more so the lack of it with the OMMA. The secret shopper program specifically. How many products have been tested? What are the results? Where and how were they tested? Were they contracted through the state to a privatized licensed laboratory? Is that lab now allowed to continue testing commercially? Because according to your rules and regulations, they're not. Okay? Is this being handled by putting it out there under a patient licensing and you're just paying the bill? Okay, transparency in the secret shopper program is important. Representative Ty Burns is no longer here, the one that wrote the bill who asked for transparency in this project, and I don't think we've seen that yet. I don't believe that you guys have lived up to the legislative requirement of the percentage of products that need to be tested. We know that at Patients for Safe Access, we've tested 247 products in 2.5 years, guys. Okay, how many have you tested? So you don't have to answer that question right now because I don't want to have to reclaim my time. Restricted access to audio and video in the courtroom and the administrative proceedings. If you are a party to the case, guys, and this is important for businesses here today, and you want your case recorded, you want it documented so that you can have that information, you cannot do that, okay? You can shake your head, but we actually asked. So I'm going to end it on government transparency. I'm going to continue to work with Representative John Kane on that project. And I've got the executive orders that were signed restricting our access further and further from April of last year through September of 2025. And I don't know what there is to hide, but I don't believe you should be restricting everyone's access to record in that courtroom, whether it be audio, video, and or to make someone who is disabled leave their phone in their car and have to walk in and out if they need to access their phone. So thank you very much. That's my time today on Patients for Safe Access, and y'all have a beautiful Friday.
Thank you for your comment. To clarify, court transcripts are available in every courtroom in the state of Oklahoma for parties to the case. That's why I shook my head, just to clarify. Next is Charles Rabina.
I usually don't need a microphone. Good morning, everyone. My name is Charles Rabina. I'm with Patients for Safe Access. I come to you today with a heavy heart. I didn't get in the fight with Connie Johnson when she was here. She was our green senator. She was the shining light. I didn't get into it with 788 to legalize medical marijuana. I got into it after being poisoned. Would you bring me my paperwork, ma'am? So I want to take a moment of silence for the people that stood up and the people that fought for our medical marijuana. I didn't get started in this until my beautiful girlfriend was in the hospital with stroke-like symptoms. And I fought with the doctors. I started testing products with OKCTL Labs. And I found out the products we were smoking were filthy. They were contaminated. I presented it to Ms. Berry's attorneys to be presented in court in front of Judge Joe Dewey. None of that information was ever presented in court. I went to every trial because that would have been a crime. It would have been a crime to leave somebody like this. They received a $133 million fine into a 4-month look into their operations in metric mining. The 18 months I worked for them, that would have equated to $700 million in fines. Where's the accountability? He got a get out of jail free card. He left the state. There's no criminal charges filed against him. And there's many other companies. I won't bring them up. But I've asked for the Senate chairs to hold a Senate hearing to ask for the mistakes, for the fails of our agency, so that they can properly legislate this and build a foundation we can move on from. Miss Berry built an airplane in the sky. That plane long crashed. She needs to resign immediately. The light at the end of the tunnel she spoke about so eloquently with the man from OBN, she saw a light at the end of the tunnel. The light's November when we get a green governor and he wants to build a thriving program. You restrict all good businesses, which creates a thriving black market that's just not being corrected. It's not being corrected by law enforcement, by OBN. Our program has serious issues, and when people are getting poisoned and nothing's being done about it, after the governor said what he said in his State of the State, I believe our patient services lady was fired. I'm going to be meeting with her after this meeting today. I also have a 1 o'clock meeting with Mr. Jesse Brewer about incomplete open records. That's my time.
Thank you for your comment.
We can all do much better at this table. There should be hundreds of patients that get their voices heard. There's 316,000 of us, and not a one of them at this table. They're on the outsides of the room. Thank you for your time. My time is good.
Okay, our final commenter is Brandy Keenan.
Hi, good morning, everyone. First of all, again, Director Berry, thank you so much for holding this and letting us come in and comment. I really appreciate that. In my capacity as owner of OK Canna Consulting, I just want to first let me say that every comment today is very valid, and I'm grateful for all of you being here and everyone who commented. I'm sorry for your experience. I want to say, however, that I have had some really phenomenal experiences with OMMA, and in light of all of the negativity, I just want to bring those up. So first of all, the call center, fantastic. Joyce, Thomas, Stephanie, and Megan are all phenomenal. You guys have done a great job of catching up the backlog, and I'm so grateful for that. I'm also grateful for their kindness every time they answer the phone. They're incredible, helpful. They will take all of the time I need. It doesn't matter to them if I have 17 questions. They will take the time to answer all of them for me. So I'm so grateful for that. Also, your inspectors in the field, fantastic. Most of them will say, we are just here to do our job. Just like everybody, we're not out to get you. And I feel that from them. I attend inspections regularly. I'm super grateful for them. They are fantastic and doing a really great job. Additionally, OMMA Legal has been fantastic at responding to my emails. Although I'm not an attorney, they're also kind and respectful, and I'm really grateful for that. And then in my capacity as executive director of PCA, I just want to say that we have launched a program called PCA certification. And in this, we have a list of things that businesses must adhere to be PCA certified. This is newly launched, and we have just started a couple of the first certifications. But our mission is education and advocacy, and to really highlight the good businesses doing good things. So I just wanted to extend that information to you and let you know that we're here, and happy to have anybody visit some of these facilities and talk about that if there's any need. And again, thank you all so much for being here.
All right, thank you for your comment. Okay, so our first public comment period at our advisory council meeting has concluded. Thank you all who came early to sign up. We will do this at every council meeting. Let's see. Moving on to OMMA updates. Okay, I will provide a general update, after which advisory council members will have an opportunity for discussion and questions. And I am just going to really give some high-level information about what's going on internally at OMMA, and then we have some other agenda items to get to. But The med portal was very bumpy. Last time we talked, I let you all know that we were holding the vendor accountable. Coming to you today, I will tell you that things are much, much better than they were. It's been bumpy, but we are able to process all applications. We have people who are working directly with anyone that's having trouble with their application, but we're on day 36 turnaround time on commercial renewals. Credentials are being turned around same day, transport agents same day, and patients are an 8-day turnaround time. All right, so let's see. We also started a new administrative actions tab where you can track all of the administrative actions we file. You can also see our court docket on that page. Department of Agriculture and law enforcement, to include OB&DD and AG, are really taking the lead on some of the hemp-derived cannabinoid enforcement. For our budget request this year, there were budget hearings in the House and the Senate that you can watch at any time, but we requested a flat budget, meaning no increase or decrease. I will give a full presentation on this at the next advisory meeting, but feel free to go watch the House and Senate for more details. They ask a lot of questions about the agency, the need for the budget, and they hold us accountable for our budget. We are on track with accreditation of the QA lab, which Bobby Gramling will give an update on momentarily. We are on track with enforcing in our administrative court and partnering more than ever with law enforcement, both local and state level. I will now stop and see if any of you council members have questions or discussions related to this OMMA update. Okay. I'm going to go ahead and move on and turn it over to our new Chief Science Officer, Bobby Gramling. Bobby spent time at OMMA learning and observing before stepping into his new role as the Chief Science Officer. He has a strong background in science. He's doing a great job of getting things moving a bit faster in the science department, which was my request of him. So he's going to give some high-level updates, and then there will be opportunity for council members to ask questions or have discussion.
Good morning, everyone. Like Director Berry said, my apologies. Good morning, everyone. Like Director Berry said, my name is Bobby Gramling. Have a brief update for you all. As you all know, the QA lab obtained accreditation for potency in flower. We expect an update from ANAB soon regarding accreditation for pesticides in flower and potency in oil. All instrumentation has been installed and is fully operational. All remaining processes are progressing through method development and validation. Validation for terpenes, water activity, filth-informed materials anticipated to be completed by the end of March. Heavy metals, mycotoxins, residual solvents are projected for completion by late April, with microbial validation anticipated in May. A quick update on our lab inspection team. The process improvements have reduced inspection and report turnaround times. 12 cases have been filed against labs for inspections and conducted in 2024 and 25. One lab license has been revoked due to non-compliance. A quick update on the research public health side. The group we're working with Youth Initiative, Project Storage, Accidental Ingestions. We have the group out today giving a presentation in Eden, Oklahoma. We also working on some education pieces, PSAs, FAQs, employee education, and then we have some external collaboration going on as well. Washington State Research, DHS, safe storage and accidental exposures, and community-based prevention services. That concludes my update. Any questions? Yes, sir.
No,
Oh.
Questions from council members. But I also want to let you guys know that we will be adding a new tab to the website. Just like I said, we added admin actions after your request. We'll be adding a labs tab where you can see all of this information that Bobby just gave. Questions from council members for Bobby? All right, we're going to move on next to legislative session. Jed did give an overview of some of the bills out there. We have a new chief of staff, Megan Hansen. Megan brings a decade plus of experience working with the legislature and is now overseeing all government affairs and communication team functions for OMMA. Megan, please give your legislative update.
Hi, good morning. Like she said, Megan Hansen. I have a decade of experience in the legislature. I've been with OMMA for over a year now in a different role, and have been chief of staff, I think, 3 weeks now. So it's been interesting and very exciting, and I'm pleased to be here. Let me put my glasses on. As Mr. Green mentioned, we have quite a few bills moving through the legislature right now. Our main focus continues to be patient safety and responsible regulation. The bills we have moving right now extends a moratorium, places a cap of 2,000.
And I want to pause and say, not that we have them moving.
Thank you.
We didn't request these bills.
These are bills that are moving through the legislature.
Thank you.
Thank you. As a regulatory agency, we do not influence legislation. We just track it. The 3144 places a cap of 2,550 commercial grow license, and 3519 repeals the bond and requires a reclamation fee of $2,000. And then also there are 2 bills moving through that limit THC. One was amended recently to remove that cap, and it is simply an advertising bill at this point. That concludes my update.
So I think, members of the council, you have this document. It has a whole lot of bills on it. Is our website updated with this information? In the mic, if you don't. Okay, if our website is not updated, I will make sure after this that it is, that we keep it.
I believe that
with
it
the
is.
links. But otherwise, you can see this on the House and Senate website. Megan and her team are out tracking legislation, answering questions for legislators, and just making sure we're ready to implement what comes our way, but having conversations if something would be either costly or require more staff to implement, we let the legislature know that as well. Questions or comments? Yes, Taras.
Megan, are you the new Barrett? Is Barrett still on the team?
Barrett is still on the team. He's internal facing. Since he came back a year ago, he's our chief administrative officer. He really looks at internal operations and helps with that side of things. For the last year, we haven't had a chief of staff, and so Megan has come in and filled that gap.
Right. And do you have any insight on why 2550 was the number that was picked? You know, when in this bill that was presented by Representative Cornwall, the 2,550 medical marijuana grower licenses, the cap.
Do I have?
Yeah, do you know what the logic was behind that?
That would be a question for
All
the
right,
representative.
He hasn't shared that with us, no, if that's what
Okay.
you're asking.
I was just curious.
Yeah.
Thank you for your question.
All right, do we have any other questions or discussion from the council on the legislative update? All right, thank you. Now we will move on to council member updates. We asked for agenda items before the meeting, and we had several from council member Katie Nail. So I'd like to turn it over to Katie for your first item, which is proposed potency limits and increased licensing costs. I will pause for a moment. The purpose of an advisory council is to advise, and so we will be listening and hearing what you're saying. But what we're searching for are bits of advice that you would like for us to take back with us. Thank you.
Okay, I don't have much to comment on the licensing cost. I had like 4 other things to focus on, so I'm going to table that because that's not my specialty. I want to start with proposed potency limits, which will actually go along with the THC package limit of 100 milligrams. Okay. Many Oklahoma medical marijuana patients require individualized dosing based on physician recommendation, condition, severity, metabolism, and tolerance. A strict 10 milligram per serving, 100 milligram per pack cannot adequately serve patients with chronic pain, cancer-related symptoms, severe nausea, neurological disorders, PTSD, autism. This will cause increased financial burden on patients. that do require higher doses, and it's very appropriate for higher doses in many patients. This will cause breakthrough in symptoms, interrupted symptom management. And I just want to, actually, this goes back to House Bill 454 and I might say this wrong, Senate Bill 1591. I urge these senators to speak with me so I can educate you. And I'm really trying to protect the patients here. I know this goes more legislation, but OMMA, if there's any way I can help bridge the gap in that to support patient care, then I will do that. Benefits of research within OMMA. I think it would be beneficial if OMMA had a research department. You may have stuff going on, but it can go into patient safety. Getting rid of synthetic, it all ties together, and which can help support appropriate dosing for legislative. Testing equipment for public safety. Sorry, I got this on my notes. I'm getting there. Okay, so from what I understand, the current accepted testing machine is LC-MS-MS. There are evidence-based research out there that shows that there are better alternatives for measuring, such as LC Orbit Trap, GC-MS, using those, especially in combination. There are a lot of pesticides that the LC-MS doesn't test for. There's a lot that goes into the testing, live DNA, inactive DNA, and so that these other machines, you can get accurate testing for patient safety. And I think it's important for the lab to consider that for the QA lab and for the others in the state. Let's see. The safety benefit behind this, enhance accuracy, reduce false positive and negative, improve patient safety, support consistent enforcement, align Oklahoma with modern scientific standards. On the inspection report and timeline, I did notice that you got, and you just kind of answered this, but the post that you made on all but just the labs should have a response within 5 days. I think it's very important that the lab be included in an acceptable timeline. Title 63 and metric data access. I'm concerned about Title 63 as it relates to OMMA's ability to utilize metric for compliance monitoring. These changes, to reverse that, these changes reduce transparency, weaken enforcement, and compromise the safeguards that protect Oklahoma's medical cannabis patient. Patient safety must remain the highest priority, and allowing these documents for public access, not just for knowledge, but the ability to see, companies that may be producing false information, better tracking. So I would highly encourage that legislative and OMMA get together to change this rule. I think that's all I have for now.
Okay, thank you so much, Katie.
Can I ask a question to one of those she brought up? And it's to A, where you're talking about the proposed limits. So I'm just trying to get my mind wrapped around it. So what you're saying is instead of having a set amount, you said that could financially burden some people if they had to buy more instead of having different, like any other medication.
Right.
You have different levels.
Right. Yeah. Pain medication, you have different levels. I mean, at least this is a safer option for treatment. Mm-hmm. There are 10 milligrams is actually a very small dose.
Yes, ma'am.
That's like saying I'll give you a Tylenol after you get your appendix taken out. if we want to go recreational on one end, make that 10 milligram limit per gummy. But for medical patients, cancer patients, high dosing to block the TRPV1 receptor and killing the cancer cells. Your autism patients, chronic pain, 10 milligrams is very little, and I think it would be beneficial for the state to have better guidelines on that. And I think there is acceptable limits, but this 100 milligram per package will cause more harm than good.
I understand. Do you have any examples of like how you would have that laid out? 1, 2, and
I do.
Just for me.
I don't have it with me right now, but I do have a lot of research that supports this. I think if the synthetic marijuana was to be taken care of in the state, given that, actually, here's some research for you. The synthetic cannabis patients in general, especially children, are 30 times higher than regulated cannabis to have side effects. And 90% of kids who end up in the hospital because of synthetic marijuana actually end up intubated on a breathing machine. There is no record of overdose in cannabis. I think that it needs to be regulated with proper packaging. If you have kids, lock it up. Education in schools. So I think the more that we include the public education and proper standards, we could have a great program.
Yeah, and I appreciate that. Just trying to get some clarity on
I can
just
definitely
dosage amounts and
I would love to
things
get
of that
with you
nature.
and do the research.
It makes sense what you're saying, both from a financial standpoint and certainly a patient standpoint. And so I'm just trying to get some clarity on that. So thank you.
Other questions or discussion from the council? Taras?
Well, I'd like to just kind of point out, I mean, I know that's a legislative proposal, so I know that that's not you guys. But at the end of the day, I'd like to, follow up on that and say, yeah, we think as an organization that 100 milligram limit's a little low. There probably should be some threshold. I don't know what the appropriate threshold should be. But, if somebody's producing a 20,000 milligram gummy, that's probably not necessary. But, as far as the medical aspect and also from a business aspect, that'll create some issues. From a processor standpoint, everybody's already locked in on, sizing and packaging now. So I just think, what do you guys think, or what do you think that we need to do? I guess we need to go and approach this legislator and say, hey, is there time to revise this before it goes up still, or is this already in process? I don't know where it is. I haven't really been following it that much this year.
Yeah, I think it would be good for you guys to follow it. And I'll just tell you what I know from watching the committee meeting that happened this week. Representative Marty did amend Representative Newton's bill to take out the milligram caps on the House side. And his call to the industry was to come to the table with the Department of Human Services director, because who's driving this legislation. So if you go back and watch that bill, I think it gives you a lot of good context. On the Senate side, Senator Rosino's bill has made it through committee, and it would be heard on the floor, and it has an emergency on it, as Jed said. So, I mean, I as industry and patients, you've got to be engaged on these things for sure. For council, we already had our public comment period. This is for council at the moment.
And I will tell you, certainly from my perspective, dealing with legislators in my industry, they cover a myriad of topics, and not truly an expert in any one of them, just trying to get the best information they can and produce the best, law they can. So with that, it is of the utmost importance. And that's why I appreciate what you said, for me and how I view the industry. And then for you to say, hey, it's a patient, and each patient has a different dosage amount. And then certainly, like we discussed, as a business person, what does that look like for the industry and how we roll that out if you lock us in to a certain dosage? For me, it's opened my eyes just in this room now to be able to see it from your perspective and your point of view. And I think a lot of people around this building are very pragmatic. If you presented that to them, I believe that's something where you could get some movement. because it certainly moved me.
I think that a lot of people that don't have the education look at marijuana and be like, oh, they're getting high. There are plenty of ways to use cannabis safely without having euphoria. Decarboxylation is what transforms THCA into THC, but you don't have to do that for kids. There's many different ways to utilize and do it safely.
Sheriff Johnson?
Just one more thing. I have a member update, but certainly didn't put it on here. That is, please apologize for that. What I was going to say, like my friend said back here, just updates after the meeting. Just want to know, like, there are discussions and action items that happen after meetings, and certainly after the last meeting, seeing how local law enforcement can collaborate with OMMA to see how we can bolster each other's work and help each other out where they bring expertise. And, we certainly have people in the field, but I mean, I have to admit from a law enforcement perspective, our guys and gals who are out on the road are involved in so many different things each and every day, going to different stores and stuff. Just it takes away from, being in a community or being in a school or in what we're trying to figure out is how can we come together and collaborate that empowers not only OMMA from a legal side where they can provide at least some level of enforcement, whether that falls under the umbrella of a sheriff or whatever the case might be. But just know, like, those conversations are happening. It's just, how do we get there? Because everything is so dictated and guided by legislation. And really, those are many of the hurdles that we tend to jump through. But it is my effort to make sure that the industry is taken care of, that we get rid of bad actors, and we protect the vulnerable who can come into this. And that's really the motivation to work with OMMA on that. So that's the update I had. I was very appreciative of the meeting and learned a lot.
Thank you, Sheriff Johnson. And yes, thank you for meeting with Jesse and I recently to work through all of this. And it is a work in progress. Any other comments or discussion over Katie's updates from the council before we move on to Taras's update?
I think I'd want to just kind of follow up on that as well. As I think you're referring to the gas station weed, so is what we're calling it. In slang terms, and that's been a problem. We've talked about that many times over the last several sessions, that we'd like to see that eliminated quickly. The federal legislation is in place, and I guess in November that becomes illegal across the country. But yeah, that's a problem because that doesn't get tested. So that's what I think Katie is referring to. So all the products that we make, we send it through a third-party lab. We make sure it's safe, accessible, and then put it out, in the stores. Where the gas station weed, they'll go make their product. There's no requirement to test it, and they can sell it anywhere. Well, theoretically, I guess you're not really technically supposed to do it here in the state, but I guess just the resources aren't there to go snuff that out, in a quick enough fashion. Because I think from a safety standpoint, that's key. That's been our primary focus. But then the second aspect is, it hurts us, the folks that are trying to do it the right way, because that impacts, our ability, because other people are going to go to it. And really my chief concern is, some kid goes in and buys a bag of gummies, and the example we heard where somebody was poisoned, if it's not tested, you don't know what you're putting in your body. And then there's an inherent risk there. And then as soon as that happens, who does that typically fall back on? That falls back on us, and then the community as a whole, the folks that are against it, and the legislators that want to regulate this more, that gives them more of an incentive or, a mandate to go after it. So that's kind of where I'm coming from, is we want to clean that up, and then just make sure the products that are being dispensed out to people are safe and appropriate. Is that okay?
Can I actually ask OBNDD something?
Are you open to a question?
Sure. I didn't know if you wanted to wait till there's a discussion section on that.
Okay. Thank you. Let's get you a mic.
Okay, so you guys have the marijuana enforcement team. What is the plan to go after the gas station products and synthetic so that those products that are illegal are not being used against the actual medical products that are safer?
Am I on? Okay. I'm glad that you asked that question. One of the things I wanted to point out with respect to kind of what you guys call the gas station weed or whatever is, when it comes to OBN and the Met team, our authority, our regulatory authority over medical marijuana is exclusive. Like, we're the only people that can do it. We do that through, our issuing of registrations to the growers, the distributors, and all that stuff. But when it comes to criminal authority, we are just a piece of the puzzle. We do have some cases where we've been involved with, again, the gas station weed. We have I can't go into it too much because there's litigation ongoing over it, but we've got a federal case right now where we seized a bunch of, what I would contend is really just marijuana that's mislabeled as, a THC, a lesser THC or a different THC. So we do have some of that. I would always encourage you all, when it comes to the criminal stuff, like I said, regulatory, we're the only game in town, basically. But when it comes to the criminal side, we are a piece of the puzzle. And so I would certainly recommend that if anyone has issues, you also contact your local law enforcement. There's oftentimes that local law enforcement will get us involved if they think that's something we should be doing. But anyway, so we have done some of that. As far as numbers and stuff like that, I couldn't, I couldn't give you anything like that off the top of my head. But again, like I said, I know that we currently are being sued over it. So it is happening.
Are there other pieces of the puzzle where everyone can get together to come up with an actionable plan? Is that doable?
What do you mean by that?
You said you were part of just like a piece of the puzzle. So
yes,
can
we're a piece of the puzzle, and so
together to come up with an actionable plan, because that has a higher patient safety risk than your regulated cannabis.
Okay. Well, again, like I said, we're a piece of the enforcement team, so I would recommend calling your local law enforcement. If they think it's something that they would like assistance in handling, that's something we'd certainly take a look at with them.
And to his point, it is a very very nuanced industry, and that's what when I come here, I constantly take notes because I don't know, and I've been a law dog for a long time, and so when you think about deputies, road deputies, and officers, they don't know what they're seeing in the store. We wouldn't begin to know what is the good, what is the bad, and how to discern the difference. And so that's why the conversation in the meeting that I had with Mrs. Berry was so vital and important to see how can we mesh the enforcement and obviously the expertise from the OMMA and with their knowledge base to assist in that. Because one, we can't do it all, but how can we empower you to have have our ability to enforce? What does that look like? But, as I discussed, because they have a specific role in it, just how we can build each other and just a lot of hoops to kind of jump through to get that. And you would hope that's not the issue, but it kind of is.
Would you be open to me providing education for local law enforcement to be able to tell the difference between synthetic and regulated?
Certainly. I will tell you, law enforcement traditionally has just been the group who now we have to be well-versed in all disciplines. And I mean, it's a lot. I mean, but it's a responsibility that we take on because we understand what the profession means to the community. So any education we certainly appreciate, and if it makes our guys better, it makes our community safer.
Okay, thank you for the discussion. Do we have any other council discussion before we move on to Taras's item? We'll go ahead and just move on. Taras Flinko would like to discuss interagency coordination following OB&DD enforcement actions. Taras?
Thanks for attending. So thanks for the meeting. And I thought the open session was good, so productive. I think those are going to be good going forward as long as we come to these meetings with, sane minds and, calm voices, because I think the yelling and screaming is counterproductive, and that acts as a detriment to us as a community, in the industry, when the legislators see, all the yelling and screaming, and really I think because they're a little bit, my perception is, a little shell shock from the first couple of years where we just had a lot of chaos. And we're a new industry here in the state still, and it's a new industry in the country. When you take a look at it as a whole. As far as thank you for coming, appreciate it. One of our concerns as a business is, what happens. And I've had some great conversations with Jesse and Jamie from the OMMA police enforcement side, about talking about how are the agencies acting together in tandem. And so one of the concerns I have is I keep seeing posts from you guys on your socials that say that there's 1,400 active licenses on the cultivation side, and yet OMMA, well, as of a couple days ago, I noticed that I guess we're down about 2,100, 2,200 licensed cultivators. So, that's a pretty large gap, and I get that, it's not going to be perfect because cases are in process, so they're not going to definitely move at the same pace. But, if you guys come in and turn off a license, from the OB&DD side, to me, that's the marker that says, hey, that operator probably shouldn't be operating anymore on the OMMA side. And so from our perspective, it appears that coordination between the two agencies could improve. And that, if the Bureau of Narcotics team comes in and takes a decisive action, let's say they come into a farm and, they're taking all the plants, putting in people in handcuffs, that's probably a pretty good indicator that there's a strong case there. So, and you've shut them down. Because, if you came in and killed all our plants, that'd be a devastating blow. And I hope that they are good cases, because we don't want to see that in any of the people that are trying to follow the rules. We want to have at least a chance to, defend ourselves and explain what we're doing, and then if we're doing it wrong, well, then that, it is what it is. But that gap seems massive, and it also seems like, and that's some of the conversations that I've had, and I'm probably a little bit of a thorn in OMMA's side on this one, because, it's hurting us as operators, because the guys that aren't doing it right are the ones that are most likely putting out black market product. And I don't know if it's coming, if it's coming through, establishments here, or if it's going out of state. I know a lot of it's going out of state, because you read it about, you read an article at least every other week about that, it seems like. And how we're, I guess, the market leader in black market production now. So, for those of us that are trying to do it the right way and produce great products, we'd like to see more enforcement on that side and better collaboration. So, the questions I've been asking the OMMA team is like, well, how does this happen? Because if OMMA takes action, turns off a license, well, then at that point, their authority stops there, and now it becomes a local law enforcement or a Bureau of Narcotics issue. So, I've asked, well, hey, what's the coordination here? Because, I don't know how the back and forth happens, and of course, if you're in the middle of an investigation, we're not going to know about, all the details. Got it. But, we'd like to see more decisive action. From my perspective is, I just want a fair playing field, and I want safe products. So right now, it's still not a fair playing field. And, the perception is, and also, you guys are in the enforcement side, but in, the history of it is you were out there, tackling this product, and now you had to do a mind shift because we legalized it here in the state. But, and the perception as a whole from the community, the calls I get about this is that, you guys aren't friends of the industry, and you don't need to be, but if there's more communication, better data out there, it appears to me like on the Bureau of Narcotics side, the data's weak, and, but again, I don't know that because we can't really even get a hold of anybody when we want to talk to somebody. So, I mean, because we'll just call up and ask a question and say, hey, what about this? And I'll probably try to get a meeting with somebody and say, hey, what about A, B, or C? But I will say that from the meetings I've had over the last probably 2 to 3 months with various people on that side, it feels like the pendulum is swinging on compliance, and, from my perspective, we're not worried if anybody comes in. You don't even have to tell me you're coming to our facility. Like, come on. And, when we're glad to have you, we're glad to train OB and DD. I think a lot of businesses would be out there, would want to show what we're doing and how we're doing it. And then we can also learn to help identify the bad operators, because those are probably people we're not talking to. And, but, I guess my pain point is the collaboration. We want to see better collaboration, and maybe it's happening, but from the conversations I've had, it seems like we've got a lot of room to grow there. And, I'd like to see all the bad operators out, and then those of us, and there's from our perspective, the industry is now shifting from we're all pretty much mom and pops in this state, because we can't take more than 25% of investment from out of state ownership. So we don't have any big conglomerates in here. Like I know the comment earlier was like, hey, Randy's from Colorado. No, he's not. I actually know Randy from a past life, and we're gonna, all of us, well, not all of us, portion of us, we were gonna, if we didn't know anything about the industry, we were gonna hire outside sources to help us, at least kind of get through the initial pain points of, because starting a business period is hard. So, we don't have out-of-state operators. We're all here local, and we've had a lot of people move into the state and gain residency and start producing and, and providing services, which is great. But we still need to get the bad guys out. And, so that's that. I had hoped that you guys could attend at some point, and help cultivate that interagency coordination. So that way, we come out of this thing with a great, system, and we become the hallmark for the country, where we've got, because we had a pretty liberal, statute that got put in place compared to a lot of other states, which is great, because that's probably how it should be. You need to take ownership of your own health care, at the end of the day. And, so that's just my ask, and hoping you can opine a little bit on, some of the things that are happening from a OB&DD to local law enforcement to OMMA perspective to help, streamline this process. And it sounds like this year is really kind of now things are starting to move more in tandem. But, if you could talk a little bit about that.
Yeah, Josh, thank you.
Okay, thank you. I do want to talk a little bit about that. I think that, what we've seen is, and granted, I was not at OBN at the very beginning of medical marijuana, but I've been there certainly long enough now, and I've got a history with the OBN that predates that anyway. What we, our concern is really, it's not, what any of the agents think about marijuana or anything like that. I mean, to be honest, I could kind of care less. I think that the director kind of takes that opinion. Our whole goal is to enforce the laws that are out there. If the laws change tomorrow, we'll adapt to that too, just like we did this. With regard to the number of grows and kind of the discrepancy, and if I leave out part of your stuff, let me know. I'll be happy to go back to it. It's not intentional. With regard to the discrepancy, there's always going to be some discrepancy, just because the fact that OMMA's licenses are a prerequisite to getting the OBNs. So no matter what, even if we're in complete lockstep, you're always going to have people at OBN that have gotten their stuff from OMMA, but maybe they haven't gotten theirs from ours yet. Or maybe they got theirs from OMMA's, but they're having some issues with getting their OBN because obviously we serve two different functions and have two different sets of criteria. As far as collaboration, I would say that that's always going to be an evolving process. And, I view, OMMA as a partner in this. We have to work together on this thing. And so I think that collaboration is improving with them. I think I would venture to say it's pretty good as far as I can tell. So, we typically, when we take enforcement action on somebody, we will notify them. They will notify us if they've taken enforcement action on somebody. As far as, somebody going through one process and not the other, that could be a cause for some of the discrepancy in the licenses. But I think that part of that too is, and this is kind of an educated speculation as well, is because of the fact that you have to have the OMMA and the OBN to legally operate. If OMMA has taken action on somebody's and we find out about it, by law that revokes ours. But also, if they are missing one, there's plenty of enforcement to go around. Unfortunately, there's just a lot of bad actors out there. And so it may be a little bit of a strategy of, since we can't get to everybody at the same time, you kind of have to divide that up a little bit in how you do that. I think that on our end, we want the legal businesses to be able to succeed, the people that are doing it right. There's a lot of growers, probably a lot of people that are in this room that have really never had to deal with us other than just sending in their paperwork and paying their yearly fee. And that's fantastic. I think that's what we'd like to strive to. I think we're getting closer. I think it's improved. But certainly, it's not all the way there.
So would that work, in the opposite direction too? So yeah, OMMA cancels the license, they let you know, then you're going to revoke, your accreditation with us. But if you guys come in and take action, and then it gets passed back to, does it get passed back to OMMA? Because there was a license that, action was taken, and then, the rumor was, or actually it's not a rumor, I know it was true, that plants went right back in the next day. So at that point, who's checking up on that? Now I think it had been followed up on, a couple months later, because I was like, hey, how does this happen? But, shouldn't, if you guys go in and take that kind of an action, now if it's just more of a, hey, we got to get through this whole case process, I get that. OMMA can't. I wouldn't want that done to me, because I want to be able to defend myself, and show that we're doing it the right way. But if somebody comes in and, cleans out a facility, takes all the product, destroys it, whatever you guys do with it, shouldn't that then be passed on over to OMMA, and then they should be turned off in metric so they can't transact anymore, and so that we know that, that like if that's a particular business that we were doing business with that we thought was above board, we don't want to do business with those folks either. So we want to eliminate that as well. But I think that that's kind of where, that's my perception. Again, I don't have, I'm not sitting in here every day. Like I don't have that time. We're just so busy because this is a pretty hectic space to operate in the current business environment. So, there's just, every day is the challenges are greater than any other business that I've ever been involved in. And it's like every week. So, but I'd like to see, obviously I'd like to see all the bad operators out, but also, aspirationally, we want to stop seeing, every week 2 or 3, big busts going on, because what that does is puts negativity on an industry that, does have a lot of positive aspects and helps a lot of people. So, we have reports of people getting off of opioids, because of marijuana, cancer, epilepsy, I can go through a whole list of things that why it's good, right? And then there's the abusers, right? There's the people that are going to misuse it, but, you're going to have that in every facet of, we could talk about food, same issue. But what happens there then? If OB&D goes in and takes action, shouldn't that at that point, shouldn't the license be turned off at that point? If you guys come in and say, hey, you guys are done, and now we're going to go to court on this, and you guys have a chance to defend yourself, but in the interim, they need to be removed off of all the platforms, so they can't operate, with us, because that's the only way we know if they're legal. We'll go look on OMMA to see if the license is valid, and then if they're still alive in metric, well, generally speaking, that's probably a pretty good idea that they're going to be okay to do business with,
Yeah, what I would say is, first off, as far as places getting shut down and immediately having plants. I think that was part of your question.
Yeah.
One of the things that we've been doing for the last probably couple of years is whenever we only seize plants or anything like that pursuant to a search warrant. We don't just seize it on other grounds. It's always a court order from a judge. So when we do a search warrant on somebody and we seize all their product or whatnot, we do an emergency suspension every time if they have an OBN.
Yeah, you guys do.
Oftentimes they don't, which there's nothing for us to do administratively. But if they have an OBN, we've been doing that so they can't possess plants. The other thing is, it's a little, and I can't speak to OMMA exactly, but from just what I know about the law, it's a lot easier for us if OMMA has already revoked somebody or somebody has lapsed through OMMA, it's much easier for us because since theirs is a prerequisite license, once that's gone, ours just shuts off by operation of law. It doesn't require court pleadings or filings or anything. It's just, as soon as we know about it, they just get shut off on OBN. Because theirs is the initial license, theirs is a lot different. They have due process rights. They have a right to be heard. They have a right to present evidence or whatnot, before they can just take action on those. So, if the OBN goes away, it's going to take some doing on their part. They're going to have to go through the administrative process. We have to serve them, go through the judges and stuff like that. And I know they do that. But whereas with ours, like I said, we kind of are advantaged by the fact that once theirs is gone, you just can't have an OBN. You don't really get a hearing or anything. That's kind of the end of it.
But technically, you have to have the OBN to have the OMMA. So, in a scenario where, let's say I'll just use me as an example.
But that's not true, Ross.
No?
Someone can have an OMMA license. If they don't have any product, they can just hold on to that OMMA license. If they're applying for OBN, there are quite a few OMMA licensees who are applying for OBN, and they still legally have an OMMA license. So what he's saying is for us to take that license, we have to file a court document to take that license away, and then they have due process. So he's explaining the legal difference to you.
Okay.
So yeah, that's a little bit different.
I'm a little dense. I'm probably the least smart person in this room.
I don't know. You got me.
Yeah. But if I renew my license today, and then tomorrow you guys come in because we're bad operators and shut us down, well, technically I have a whole year where I could theoretically operate.
You can't have plants or product. You can have an OMMA license, but you can't have product.
Right, but I know legally you probably can't, but if I go and I have plants, whatever, if I have access to product, I could operate still under. Nobody else is going to know. I'm not going to know if that whoever I'm coordinating with or trying to get a deal done, that they can operate for another 12 months. I would think once they're turned off, then at that point metric should be turned off. But am I thinking about this wrong?
I get what you're saying now. I understand now. You're saying as a business person doing business, if you're looking on OMMA Verify, it's going to say they have an OMMA license because it doesn't confirm whether or not they have an
and
OBN or
metric
not.
Still works. Yeah.
Well, I will say we are doing so much better at coordinating with OBN than we historically ever have, and I want to thank you for that, Josh, you and the whole team, Director Anderson. We are getting more information from them so that we can file what you're talking about, the actions to immediately stop the OMMA license, which would stop their metric. Once we have that data from OBN, we're getting it, I think, weekly now, and we're also sitting down weekly. So we've come a long way in working together.
Okay, and obviously, I'm saying this from the standpoint of the people that are breaking the law. Right. Most of us out here, I think, at this point in the game are trying to do it the right way, and making every effort that you can. But there's still a big lot of people out there that are producing bad products or playing games with switching out. Just all the things that you can do, I guess, in this industry. So I from my perspective, because the whole industry right now, we're all pretty strained from an operational standpoint, and that has an impact on how we produce, how we sell, and it's just the classic oversupply, soft demand curve where, price points put us in a situation where, cash flow is tight. So, we have to repel. Like if you have a farm, something's going to break in your farm every week. So, and those aren't cheap costs, and so we don't have the capital at all times, to go out and do the things we need to do. Well, if we can get out the bad operators, because, what I've been told by the law enforcement representatives that I've spoken with is, the people that are doing that, they're selling a portion of their products on the legal market, depressing prices, and then offsetting with illegal activities that is not reported, not safe, and then it puts strain on us that are trying to do it the right way. So that's just where I'm coming from. I mean, and I will say though, that it has greatly improved from the point that we started this board, and just over the last like 3 or 4 weeks. I mean, there's been a lot of activity, for those that are breaking the law. And, that's good. It's just not fast enough for us because, we want to see a safe environment. I want to get the negativity off of our back so we can focus on good health, good products that help people for whatever their issue is. So that's just where I'm coming from on that.
No, and I certainly respect that. And I agree. I wish that the processes were faster, but unfortunately the legal system works very slowly at times. It's not a perfect solution, but what I would kind of say, and I'm sure you're aware of this, is if you have concerns about somebody that you may be dealing with, that they may not have an OBN or that they may have issues with their OBN, you can also check the OBN portal, which will say whether or not they're active. It's an extra step. I know that you're busy, especially when margins are tight. But you can always check the registration status on the OBN website as well.
All right, thank you so much. Do we have any council discussion or questions for Terrace's item?
I kind of want to go on to that a little bit more. We've definitely been involved between the relationship of OMMA and OBN on some licensing stuff, and then the sale of the license we had, we're now in the 13th month of this. And it's every time we talk to somebody at OMMA, well, it's OBN's fault. We talked to you guys, it's OMMA's fault. I mean, it's just some way there's got to be some better coordination because we've marked and checked every box, but it just tends, and I'm not the only one. There's a lot of people in this industry that struggle with this out there. So I'm just saying, from our point, I think it could be better. It's gotten better, but it could be better than it is today. But also, get on my soapbox a little bit here. We are the lifeblood of this business. It's not any of the regulators. It's us. If it wasn't for us, nobody would be here. And so sometimes it feels like, I get it from the enforcement side. You have to. If you didn't, it would be rampant out there. I get it. But at the same time, I look at OMMA as a agency that regulates the business, but it also should support the business as much as possible, because without us, it's all gone. And so I look at this list. This is kind of ridiculous to say it. I would bet that all of the people that's proposing these bills probably doesn't know anything about our business. Anything. And I don't know how we fix that, because that's just politics. It's been that way forever. Somebody comes to them, one of their constituents, and screams loud enough, they're going to get a bill filed. And then hopefully we can fight the fight where it doesn't go through. Because if you want to take a look at a business model that's really hurting is California. It's completely overregulated because they do the same thing. I see us going in the exact same direction. We have so many fees and so many taxes and so much of that side of the business, we can't afford it. And I know we're Kind Love, Oklahoma, but we're really that's our DBA over there. But Herbal Junction is our real license name. But we pay way above 7 figures in fees and taxes and everything that we support everybody here. We support the cities. We support the sales tax. I mean, it's a substantial thing. And plus, we employ 45 people. So we're supporting 45 families out there. And we're doing it the right way. But sometimes it seems like that black cloud's over us that we're not being supported like we should. And so I'm not saying you guys whatever, but I just want you to think through that when stuff comes up, because there's people out there that are doing this business 100% correct. I know Taras is, and I can name off a bunch of us out there. But we struggle so much because, there's two things that you look at when you're a grower is what's my expenses of growing per pound? How much is it costing me to do that? And then what am I selling it for? And you get into the feds, hopefully that gets fixed, but it's not fixed yet. I mean, Trump's trying to get it done, but that 280E is a killer for us. And I bet you there's not one person on there, maybe a couple, but not many even understand that part of this business out there, that it's not just 10 cents here and 15 cents here. You know what I'm saying? It sounds like nothing when they do this, but now some of it doesn't. If 15% tax could be put into place that's not there today, it might wipe us out, because I don't know if we're making 15%. Most months we're not. But I guess my point is, without us, there would be no marijuana business in Oklahoma, not legally anyway. There's always been, and it's always going to be there. That's up to you guys to go kill that part off. But OMMA, you should regulate us, but you also should support us in every way possible that you can out there from that aspect of it. Because without that, I don't think we could survive, and I don't think you guys would survive that.
I'm curious, just from a pure curiosity standpoint, how does OMMA know who to support when we're in here talking about all these bad actors, people who look legit but aren't? How are we as regulators going to pick and choose who we support and how we support you? If you have a suggestion, I'm open.
Well, I think when you come in and you do your audits, and I think we get audited every month, but that's fine. And I tease on that. I don't know. It seems like we do because we got enough licenses. It just seems that way. But if they're good at what they do, they'll find it, and they'll see the discrepancies there. And if we pass with really no red check marks on we should be one of the good guys out there. And I don't know. And I'm not saying that we should be treated any differently, but we shouldn't be treated any worse than because I think a lot of times. I think you guys see so much bad stuff that we all kind of get grouped into that kind of thing out there.
Counter to that, it's more of we treat every licensee the same. We will not show favoritism one way or the other. So we go out with a fresh slate for every single inspection. So when we are asked to support, I don't know what that means. We're government. We're a regulatory body that does licensing. I don't know I'm curious about what you mean by support.
Well, I say that is because you're not funded by the government. You're funded by us. I mean, it's this industry that funds you guys. And I'm not saying you should treat us any differently. I'm not asking for that. But I think that just sometimes we get entangled in some of this, and maybe it just gets a little frustrating of this licensing process and this movement of licenses and stuff, that it just seems like this is much simpler than it looks to us on the outside. Out there.
And from another curiosity standpoint, we as a government body, I'm appointed by the governor, so he's my boss. Right. And then the legislature writes the laws that we follow, and that's our job as the executive branch to implement those laws. So I do track what you're saying about the funding, but the legislature takes that funding and then appropriates it back to us so that we can follow the laws that they've written. So I would be interested in hearing a bit more from you how we could show support, exactly what you mean by that.
Yeah, I'll put something together.
I think one of the things that I heard, that you mentioned at the beginning there was M&A activity around, just license transfers. I mean, our attorneys telling us, because we kind of stepped back from that path a couple of years ago when the industry really got hit hard. We're starting to try to look and see if there's some opportunities to bring people along on our team. And I'm hearing that it's a 9 to 12 month process just to get a license transferred over, and there's a lot of confusion around that. So one of the things I think that would be helpful is maybe, help with a little bit better guidance. I don't know, because I haven't really delved that deep into this yet. We're now starting to look at potential growth opportunities. And, that'd be helpful because, we have to go through, I guess, you guys and OB&DD before we can even start any kind of, hey, I'm going to go buy, somebody, or I'm going to sell a license to somebody. So Senate
Bill 1939 was written a couple of years ago that changed the entire license transfer process. It is truly not we have no opinion about how it's done. We just follow that law. And just out of curiosity, how long do you think it takes to transfer a business license in every single other industry in this state? Because it's 9 to 12 months.
Well, it's pretty quick to buy a business.
To transfer a license, though, that you own from the government, it is a process in every industry.
I understand. I don't know the answer to that, so that's a good point. But it just seems like 9 to 12 months seems like a really long time because we don't even know what's going to be happening in 3 months. From a market perspective, because it's still pretty volatile. And the swings happen fairly quickly. So, that'd be one thing, and it sounds like, if we've got to go to OMMA and do that, then we got to go to OB&DD, and then, there's hiccups, that's dragging it out. So is there a way to maybe aggregate the two, to help at least that initial portion of the process? Because then we still got to get through the, as you're doing your due diligence, I guess if you've made that decision at that point, let's say I want to go buy a business license at the time, we've made the determination that we're okay with what we're looking at, and we want to go ahead and buy it. So, but I don't think buying a company, in a lot of my experiences, they don't take that long. I can get a deal done in under a month a lot of times with smaller operations. The bigger the company is, it takes more time because you just got to go through more details. I don't know the answer about business licenses, but it just seems like, with two different agencies, working the angle on approvals, we got to get through that hurdle first, and then we got to go through the rest of it, to make it happen. And then we got to implement and take over that, that entity. And chances are we're probably right sizing it because it's, if they're doing really well, they're probably not wanting to sell at this point right now, but, and if they're doing okay, they're just like, hey, you know what? I think I want to be part of a bigger group so I can take advantage of, the economies of scale, the operational efficiencies you can gain from as you grow a company, and then provide better support to your customer base. So I think I don't really have I don't know enough about it yet, but I have heard that from several different people over the last 6 months that, and our attorneys are like, yeah, it's taken about 9 to 12 months. So just expect that if you want to get into something. I'm not going to actually be able to go in and start operating in that license, until a year from now. And,
Well, we've been in this since 2018 from day one. And, for the first 2 or 3 years, it was just you guys we had to deal with. And then came OB&DD, and then came the fire marshal, and now we've got a lot of different ways we've got to go out there, and that's fine. We're apt and built to deal with that kind of thing, but it just seems like when you start having to coordinate and getting approval from all three of them, it just seems to get entangled up right there.
They've all been required from the beginning. Whether licensees were doing that, that's a different question, but they've all been required.
And then one other comment on the OB&DD thing. So probably not the right forum, but since I've got you here and I might not catch you before you leave. So yesterday we got a note back that 3 of our licenses were rejected from OB&DD, but no reason. So, now we have 30-day window to rebut that. We submit the same documents every year. It's the same thing, so, we see this at OMMA too. So it's not just but, every once in a while, actually it's greatly improved, Jesse. So it's on the OMMA side, from our perspective, we submit basically whatever, 70, 80 documents because we've got a kind of a complex makeup from an ownership structure to protect our assets and yada, yada. But, no reason. That'd be a little help if you could pass that along. Like, that'd be good to know, like, if somebody's going to reject me, because we know we have a 30-day window, and if we have to go gather some other data, I don't know what we'd have to gather, because I feel like we're pretty buttoned up on that aspect. And, so now, we send a note, and I don't know when we'll get a response back, but, hopefully it's quick. But chances are we're going to just resubmit the same documents and they're going to be fine because they've been approved every year. Because every license renewal, we haven't changed anything. We've been in it since virtually day one. I think we jumped in, I think 2 months in after the bill passed and people started getting in. So just could use a little help there.
Sheriff Johnson?
I have a question. I don't know if it's for OB&DD or for OMMA. One of the citizens from the community reached out to me. Apparently, he appears to be a storefront owner that sells merchandise. Was robbed. His business was robbed, and he said that he believed that all the businesses that operate are on a list that's public facing. So this is more just safety. Are they public facing? The businesses that operate, and can that obviously be viewed by the public? But to me, if you can get a list of all the companies that are operating in this area, you can just start developing a hit plan, go hit them, and go back to wherever you're coming from. So if that is the case, maybe change the system to where, on the back end you can see all the addresses and stuff, but as far as public facing information, protect the vendor is what he brought to me. I told him I would bring it up at the next meeting.
Thank you, Sheriff. I'll have you and Jesse follow up about that. Thank you. Thank you.
One of the issues that I've given this very little thought until you just now said something about it, but one of the issues that we would have is kind of what I was telling Mr. Flanco earlier is part of the reason that ours is public facing is that allows people to know that the person they're dealing with is doing it legally. They're presumably following the testing requirements and things of that nature. And so what you're suggesting, which I would think that most businesses are public facing, but with regard to this, that would essentially involve pulling that down, which I think would also create a bigger headache for other people doing business within the industry, because then it would be much more difficult for them to discern whether or not the person they're dealing with is legal.
And I see your point there. To me, it's not taking it down totally, just maybe redacting. Like, you can look up the company name and see all that, but redact the address. But I don't know if that, like I said, that was a question, and I told him I would ask.
Okay,
Does it have to be published?
I don't know off the top of my head.
I don't know that rule either, whether it is or not.
It is an open record regardless, and for a dispensary to not be public facing, then they would, people drive by them, so they're going to be seen. But our data is OMMA Verify. They have the Verify, so that if Taras or Randy want to do business with them, they can look it up and ensure that they have the correct licensure on our side. We'll look at whether the address is required or not, though. Does anybody have any further business from the council?
I have one question. Since the QA lab isn't up and running, who are you guys using for your secret shopper recalls? What labs are doing those?
We use various labs. We switch so that we're not ever just using one lab, we use three so that we can compare the compare the results. I don't have a list in front of me, but we use the labs. Right now, since we do have, we're in litigation with, I believe, 12 of the 17, that limits the number that we can utilize, and we take that into consideration. We will start the lab tab soon, so there will be a lot more data out there to combat the misinformation that's being given to legislators consistently. And I'm looking forward to seeing that be put up. If there's anything else from the council, if there's nothing else from the council, I will entertain a motion to adjourn.
Motion to adjourn.
Motion by Sheriff Johnson.
Second.
Second by Randy Hendricks. We are adjourned.